Good evening, everyone. This is Vivek from KingMakers Academy, and very happy to start the next session, which we are going to do on something which I consider of great importance, which is the detailed application form. So, आप लोग सभी का स्वागत और कुछ ही क्षण में हम इसकी शुरुआत करेंगे. We'll start in just a minute. Just to give you some background. My name, as I've told you, is Vivek Harinarayan. I am from the 1980 batch of IAS, Tamil Nadu cadre, originally from Lucknow. And the reason I've been coaching children for the last 5 years now, purely on personality test and how to make the personality test more meaningful, with great amount of success. I think that's been one reason why I can, we can claim to say that we would like more and more children to come and join us. So, including the topper of last year, this Ms. Tapishore, she was coached by us in terms of her interview. And more importantly, there are children who have been, appeared for 1 or 2 interviews, and they have been able to get only 130 or 145 in their previous interviews. And now suddenly, when they have come to us for our coaching, they have been able to get more than 180 to 190. So we've been able to make sizable improvement in the marks that people have been able to get for their interview. So that, I think, is the claim to fame that we have. And so without further ado, we will start immediately now. And this session, as I said, is a continuation of my earlier sessions, and in which I had talked to you about the importance of preparation, that you must prepare for the civil services, especially for the interview. And I will just give you a very brief recap of what we had done earlier. And after that, I will get straight into DAF. We'll be breaking up this session into 2 parts. I'll be speaking with you for about 25 to 30 minutes in terms of what is the importance of the personality test, and then I will be going straight into the DAF. So we'll go into the full, and briefly go ahead with the next slide. So just to give you a brief recall of the previous session which I had. You've already been through this process, which is the prelims, which you did on the 28th of May 2023. After that, you have written your main examinations sometimes between 15th and 24th of September. You're expecting the results towards the end of November. And based on my previous experience, normally it takes about maybe a month and 45 days before the interviews begin. So if we are expecting the results around the end of November, we can expect that the interviews will start sometimes in January 2024. That's when the personality test will start. Before I go ahead further, can some of you give me a thumbs up or a share to say that yes, we can hear you clearly? Some of you can unmute yourselves and just if you can chat and quickly tell me, yes, sir, we can hear you nice and clear. Okay, Madhukta has said thumbs up. Thumbs up, yes, sir, yes, audible, sir. Fantastic. I suppose that's with everybody else. Good. I'm only asking you how audible I am, not even asking you how I'm looking, but I suppose that's also a thumbs up. Anyway, thank you so much for that very good thumbs up. So you have to start, as I said, the personality test. Depending on the results, you will be facing the personality test sometimes in January, middle of January 2024. To again, importance of the personality test, I have mentioned last time to you also the significance of 1 mark. It is something that you really have to prepare for the personality test. And all of you are aware of the fact that even 10 positions towards the end, this year, of course, they are planning to select 1,105 for all the civil services combined together. And towards the end, after the 800th or say 700th rank, virtually for every mark, there will be 5, later on 10 positions that will decide. So every mark counts, literally every mark counts. And what is important to you is that if you can prepare well and get at least, let's say, in the range of 180 plus, my target for you is 200 in the year 2023-24. So in fact, I call this entire session also 200 by 23. And you have to start early. And as I said, early because there's so much to be covered. Again, to recall, while your mains examination has a certain curriculum and you have a subject defined, this is my subject, this is my curriculum, this is what I need to study. And you have patterns. The personality test, which is an interview and a conversation time, could be anything and everything. And that makes it, while it makes it more challenging, it also makes it more difficult and it makes it more exciting. So you need to prepare a lot more than just as if you were to prepare for a means examination. Very briefly, again, I have told you again that this is a conversation time. This is not I'm not a Q&A. So it's which means very clearly that you have to get started on what is a conversation and what is the difference between an answer and a conversation. I will be coaching you on that later on. But as I said, it's a time to celebrate. You have to write down your goals. You have to think and shrink. All these things are very important as far as your personality test preparations are concerned. So getting on to the detailed application form. It's a very significant document. First of all, please understand it's a document which you have to have it is the document which is in a video which I had sent out to you, I had said it is the mirror. It is a mirror, or in Hindi, as you will say, darpan hai. ये आपके पूरी पर्सनालिटी का, आपके पूरे व्यवहार का, आपके पूरे वार्तालाप का, कॉन्वर्सेशन का एक प्रतिबिंब है, एक आईना है. और आईना क्या तस्वीर दिखाता है उस दिन पर्सनालिटी टेस्ट में उस पूरे पैनल को? व्हाट इज द पिक्चर दैट विल बी विजिबल will be through this DAF, which is the mirror to your personality. So you've got to prepare for it well. Number 2, you have to groom yourself to be the best kind of image that they are looking forward to. And you have to make sure that there are no omissions of what are your best points. And make sure you don't make those mistakes, which if reflected in the mirror will make you look, well, not so officer-like as you normally naturally are. So first thing I said is every data in your DAF has the chance or the opportunity to become a conversation. Now, why do I call it a conversation? I call these a conversation because if you remember earlier in my previous slide, I had very clearly said that these time which you are going to spend in for the so-called interview, it's not a question and answer session. It's not a Q&A. It is a time for conversation. And while the triggers that are coming to you, and I call them conversational triggers, the conversational triggers that will come to you could be a question, straightforward. It could be a statement and you are asked to comment upon it. It could be a quotation and you're asked to elaborate. It could be a situational thing, that you are the district collector of a place, you're the SP of a place, you're the so-and-so. And how do you react to that? It could take many, many forms. The conversational triggers could take many forms, but you have to ensure that you have a really, really good conversation on all those conversational triggers. Number 2, it's significant to understand that any data in your DAF, you cannot say, I don't know. You just cannot say that. And it's a competition still. I mean, the numbers are known to you, 14,624 of you have written the main examination. About 3,000 will be called for the personality test. Please remember that even at this stage, there is a sifting that is happening. So out of 3,000, finally 1,105 will make it to civil services of various hues and shades and positions. But there is a sifting, 1 out of 3. So you cannot be looking at, I don't know, to anything that is concerned with your DAF. And I will now move on to what are the various areas of DAF which you need to be focusing on. on which, as I said, you have to prepare written answers. So we'll get back to that. And meanwhile, let me go on to the areas of focus of DAF 1, which you would have already done. There is a lot of static data, and there is more non-static data, or let's say data which is based on your experience, on your achievements, which will come in DAF 2. So very quickly, let's go on to DAF 1. The static data on your DAF, of course, is your name, email address, your mobile number, your date of birth, your address for your correspondence, both permanent, postal address. Now, please understand again that when I mentioned that every data on your DAF has the capacity to become a conversational trigger or a conversational point, it starts with your name. What is your name? That will be the first kind of question that can be asked. What is the meaning of your name? You have a very special name. Why did your parents name you for what they are? You could have a name which is of a particular leader. You could have a name which is very, very unusual and has a very, people might know not know the meaning of that name. And they will be asking you questions on the name. Why were you named like this? Why did your parents name like this? I have seen real interviews, and in which one of the first questions was that when your parents held you for the first time in their arm, let's assume that your name is Arjun. What is it that they saw that they decided to call you Arjun? What was that factor which ensured? It could be many. It could be that according to a horoscope, my name had to start with A. It was not my parents, but actually my grandparents, and he's fond of Indian mythology and therefore he had suggested that if it's a boy, preferably he should be named Arjun, no matter what be the answer. What I'm trying to say is that whatever is your name, you must prepare information on that, which means actually please go and ask your parents, why did you name me so and so? The other thing could be that who are the other famous people with the same name? Let's take Arjun itself. A very famous award of this country is named after your name. Arjun Award. Can you tell us something about Arjun Awards? I hope you're getting the essence of what I'm trying to say. Every data in your DAF has the capacity to trigger a conversation. And number two, how the mind of people will kind of take off on that one word. I'm saying, let's say Arjun itself. You don't know. So it could be just a simple question: how many, as I said, people who are famous, or can you name a character from the mythology of India which are named after you, and can you tell me some of their qualities, or anything else? Email. Some people have fairly straightforward emails. I mean, Vivek at so and so. My name is Vivek. I just put Vivek at so and so. But I've seen emails which have got name plus 007, which is reflective of James Bond. And questions have been asked saying that, what are you a fan of James Bond? Because you've got this 007 at gmail.com. So start looking at your DAF, your personal details, with a fresh pair of eyes, with a fresh sense of thinking, and with a newer sense of inquisitiveness, to say that, is there a possibility that there could be a question from my name or my email? Date of birth. Date of birth, again, it's a static data. You just kind of put it without thinking, your date of birth without a doubt. But I have met children, who are born on the 15th of August. I have met children who are born on 25th of December. I have born children who are born on 2nd of October, which means they share their birthday with famous leaders. So again, will your date of birth trigger a thinking process in the minds of the panel? And if there is a trigger that will be started by the virtue of that data, which is your date of birth, what are the possible questions that can be asked? You share your date of birth with some very famous people. Can you name them? Or can you tell us something about them? Number two, your date of birth is a national day or a celebration of a particular event. It coincides with Education Day, Children's Day, Father's Day. 19 November was Father's Day. Something like that. It just triggers a thought process. That's very important. And some historical event would have happened on that particular day. You have to remember all the historical event that has happened on that day and know something about that, that historical event, to the point of making interesting conversation. It's not something that you have to get into detailed description of that data, but you need to be able to say that, okay, yes, you can't say I don't know. When I told you, you can't say I don't know. What important thing happened on that day? I'm sorry, sir, I don't know. You are expected to know. So these are the points that I thought you must know. Your address. Your address will have, of course, your house number and your street, and if there's a house name, maybe that. But more importantly, it will have the city or the mohalla or the area where you live and the state in which you live. A lot of questions normally come on that city, and it comes on the state on which they live. So DAF is important. DAF means that static data is there, but don't think it's a casual data. I have again known of a lot of questions which have been asked on people who have lived in important cities. In fact, I was coaching someone who's recently from Vellore, which is in Tamil Nadu. Vellore is famous for its fort. It's famous for its institutions, including a famous temple. It's famous for its Christian Medical Center, CMC Vellore. And I was tempted to ask her a few questions, saying that you come from Vellore. Can you tell us about those two important things? Then Vellore Fort, for instance, is again famous for both the fact that it was the first mutiny. The mutiny started from there, which is the 1806 at the time of Tipu Sultan. Then again at the 1857. Then again in 1947, some important events happened over there. So how the mind of the panel will be triggered by virtue of the fact that you are from Vellore is something you should be prepared to answer. More importantly, there could be a question, I remember last year and the year before that, it was some addresses are very unusual, for instance, Pathan ji ki Pathshala or something like that, road, Pathan ji ka so-and-so. Now, who is this person under whom the road has been named? You must know. You're supposed to know that, and you must know the interesting anecdote behind which this particular road has been named, and or so-and-so dargah so-and-so. So these are things which you have to know, and in fact, if you know well, then the advantage is that you will be able to make a fabulous conversation out of that particular trigger point. And which is what they're looking for. The panel is looking to have a good conversation with you. Time total available for the interview is anywhere between 25 to 30 minutes. So a good conversation on maybe about 8 to 10 subjects will take you to about 15, 16 points. About 4 to 5 minutes for when you come in, another 2, 3 minutes when you have to go out and thank you, bye-bye, stuff like that. Essentially, conversation happens around maybe 10, 12 subjects. And if you can make really good conversation, of which definitely 1 or 2 conversations will be on the static data of your DAF. So how do you start? And it'll be in the upfront. It's not something that will happen later on. So that is really, really important that you study and correlate your name, your email address, your date of birth, and your address with good information. Collect all the information, which is the data, which that data is going to likely to throw up. So the next slide is part of static data. Again, the same thing goes with your marital status, your mother tongue, your place of birth. Just like I said, your address. Similarly, your place of birth could be something which is significant, and it could trigger a thought process. So it could be Amritsar if you're there. Like I was born, my place of residence was Lucknow, which I'm there, but I was born in Ludhiana, Punjab. So that was a trigger. So what's so special about Ludhiana? Can you tell us something about Ludhiana? Or so place of birth again becomes important. Normally, their community, there will not be a question mark. There will not be too many questions around your community. But place of birth, especially if it has had some socio-economic, cultural, or historical importance or political importance, Jallianwala Bagh, stuff like that, then you definitely will be prepared to that some sort of questions can come, and that is how the personal data of your or the static personal data on your DAF becomes very, very important for your preparation. Now, in your preparation, please, I think I've been telling you again and again, please, and I repeat it to the point that it becomes almost makes you sick. But the fact is that please write down your answers. Write down your answers. What is the significance of my name? Do you share the name with other people? Why were you named what you were named? Write down the answers of all these things and make them a good amount of information. Try and bring that information down to what I call the think and shrink process. Think and shrink. Depending on the conversational trigger, you will have to shrink the total data which you have, because into a sentence which can be spoken in about 80 to 90 seconds in a nice, interesting kind of way. That is the work that you have to do while thinking and shrinking. But don't depend on your memory. You have to depend on your memory only to the point that you have to recall the written data which you've already done on all these aspects. It's hard work, but it's important. And it's that importance to the point makes a difference of not just 1 mark, but I think it makes sometimes differences of even 20 to 30 marks. So I would request that on all your personal data, in your static data of your DAF, please write down what possible questions can be asked and prepare written answers and do that. My next slide is again on static data. Again, points of trigger: name of your father, name of your mother. Your father's nationality, no, obviously, most probably it will be Indian. In some cases, if it is not Indian, then obviously that would be a trigger. Your father's profession and or your mother's profession can be, and normally is, a big trigger, a very big trigger for questions. Especially where I find that, there's no connection. If your father is also in service, you're in service, it makes fine. But I've seen DAFs where the father's profession or the mother's profession was roadside vendor, agricultural labor, coolie, cobbler, something, a lot of them on profession for teaching, a lot of them medical profession, very few lawyers. But the point I'm trying to make is your father's profession, mother's profession is definitely a trigger for some questions that can be asked. And coming from that background, it could be triggering a sector. Suppose your father is, let's take a joint director of agriculture. He was director of agriculture. Your mother is a professor in a college. It triggers questions around education policy, agricultural policy. What do you think are the challenges of education in India? What do you think are the challenges of agriculture? Current affairs, the father of the Green Revolution, Dr. M.L. Swaminathan, passed away. What do you think was... The thing that I'm trying to make out to all of you is this, that if your father's profession is agriculture, the word agriculture, what it will trigger as a conversational arrow that will come in your direction is not known to you. But you have to prepare enough data that no matter what be the arrow that is coming in your direction, you're able to convert it, shield it, and then present a bouquet of flowers in a nice kind of way into a nice conversational trigger. So please research the background of your father's profession. Please research the background of your parents' profession. And of course, this other question, which is, as I said, the triangulation or the quadrillation of question that comes, that your father is so-and-so. Why do you want to join the civil services? Your mother is so-and-so. Why do you want to join the civil service? Your father is the mother of both doctors. Why do you want to join the civil service? They are both in the legal profession. Today, your father and mother, I see, are agriculturists. Why do you want to leave agriculture? Why do you want to come and, work in the civil services? Do you think it's good, this urbanizational movement that is happening, that people are moving away from rural areas and coming to urban areas? Do you think it's good or bad? Why don't you want to give back to the rural areas with the education that you have? Why do you want to join the service? Now, I'm not saying that what kind of answers you have to give, but these are triggers that can be based on the profession of your parents, which you have given amongst the static data as your personal details. The annual income of your mother and father, again, not really a trigger point. The state and district to which your father and mother officially belong to is, or the address, present postal address. Again, as I said initially, normally it will be the same, but if there is a migrational where your father and mother belong to some other district, but they moved to some other place, that data on the state or the place from where they come from could trigger questions around that state also, which means you have to add to the basket of information that you have to create as far as this static data is concerned. Same thing, as I said, goes for your present postal address of your parents, because it may trigger something. Now, would you believe it? I mean, just to give you a very example, I mean, I can give you an example of Tamil Nadu. There was a educational certificate which was being issued by the registrar of the Anna University. The person had nothing to do with it. He didn't even study in the Anna University. The certificate was from a university which is affiliated to the Anna University, and he got a certificate from that. I know of a real situation where a large amount of conversation happened on the respected C.N. Annadurai, because Anna University was the trigger. Anna was the word that came out, and a huge amount of conversation took place on Anna University, not Anna University, but on C.N. Annadurai, including asking what's the full form of the name and what was his contribution. Can you narrate some famous speeches which he made? I mean, there was a good amount of conversation that happened around the former Chief Minister, respected former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. These examples which I have given to you is only to show that the minds of the examiner or the panel can work in any and every direction. And you have to be prepared to be able to travel in those any and every direction from the static data which is available as part of your personal details in your DAF form. So I hope you're getting the gist of how important and significant it is that you prepare not only your details, which you will be factual, you can't change it, but that you need to study on them, research on them, write about those things, and prepare keywords which you must use in your conversational trigger if it is thrown in your direction when you're replying back. So that is something that I just wanted to stress as far as the importance of the DAF is concerned. Now we go on to the next slide, which is about same stuff, educational qualifications, whether from your matriculation onwards till your graduation, they will be asking you, there'll be percentage of marks, college. Again, the name of your school, college, institution, or the name of the board or university. I just gave you the example of Anna University. Similarly, college. Please, you must know, if you have studied in, let us say, AMM College, what is the full form? Who is the founder of the college? School. You studied in Padma Sheshadri if you are in the south. If you have studied in the north, you studied in St. Stephen's. You say, who was St. Stephen's? And if you studied in Ramjas College of Commerce, if you studied in Lady Sri Ram College, LSR, what was Lady Sri Ram? What is her connection with education? How did her college be named after her? Can you tell us something about her? Or any other college for in the rural areas of Punjab, or from Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, any of the state. Name of your school, college, and institution is definitely a big, big trigger point. Starting with your educational qualification, what are the subjects that you took in your matriculation or the equivalent exam, until graduation. Normal presumption, which I've seen, I mean, mostly the data doesn't change much between class 10th and 12th. Somebody is taking physics, chemistry, maths, takes 10th, take 12th. There's not normally much of a shift. Sometimes there is a shift which you can perceive in the study that has been done at the 10th and 12th level, and somebody moves from a science to an arts background. Curiosity can kill the cat, and they may ask you, why was the change of subject done? And more so, if that subject has no connection with the subject which you've taken for the optional main subject which you are in your examination. So these are all very significant triggers which can happen based on the personal data. Marks, normally not. Normally there are not questions too much on marks and what you got marks. And it makes very little difference whether you got less marks or more marks. It's a static data. the fact is that you are sitting there, you've cleared the prelims, you've cleared the mains, and you're sitting for the interview. So that itself is reason enough that you've arrived in life. I mean, you've done well and you've arrived in life. So I doubt if very much if marks, good question can come on marks. Year of passing again, normally not much, and of course there is a huge gap that you passed out in 2015 or 17, many years ago, and you are appearing for now. There's been a 10-year gap or an 8-year gap. Maybe a question will come, but it's normally embarrassing because they can understand that, and the data would show that how many attempts you've done and what was the thing. So normally those kind of information don't come. But on the static data, as I said, your school, the college, or the institution which you studied, it's something about which you must know, including the motto. And I'll tell you why. You never may know that there may be a panel member who's sitting over there, who's also from the same college. Can you name famous alumni of that school? Can you name any famous alumni of that college or that institution? These are some of the points on which you definitely can expect that you will have questions. So I am saying that your college institution, please study the history of the school, the full form, why was it founded, who are the famous students who have passed out of that, then why did you go and study there? All those things that are a trigger point as far as school, college, and institution is concerned. Again, name of the board in university, fairly not so important. I don't think any questions will come on that. So we move on to the next aspect of the static data on your personal details. Again, very important. Employment. So the employment details of your designation, your position, your salary, period, time, etc., all the data on your employment, and specifically, have you been self-employed? So that's another entrepreneurial aspect. Now, what are the questions that can happen? Typically, you are working in so-and-so sector. Why do you want to come and join the civil services? How will you use the experience of that sector to come and, to help you as far as the particular civil service is concerned? In many a times, what will happen is your monthly remuneration in that previous employment in which you were there will be fairly high. And the civil services, you know the salary structure. Why would you like to leave a, 1.5 lakh rupees a month job or a 2 lakh job to join, less remunerated job? Essentially boils down to the data which you'll have to prepare on why do you want to join the civil services. So when I say, when you have to prepare that correlation of question, you have to prepare a kind of a square or a rectangle, whichever shape is okay with you. In one corner, you have to put your educational qualification. In another corner, you have to put your employment details. In another one, you have to put the subject or the choice of subject which you are given for the options of mains. And the last corner, you'll have to put civil services. And please draw lines across each one of them. You've been employed in so-and-so sector, you've been doing this job, you've got a good position. Why do you want to join the civil service? You studied this particular subject in your graduation, post-graduation, but you have chosen, next line, you have chosen this subject as your optional. Why? With this background of education, how do you think you'll help civil services? With this analysis of the study detail which you did in your optional subject, how do you think you'll help the civil services? Or factors of that. You are employed in so-and-so, which is a good utilization of your education or your educational qualification or the study which you did. Why do you want to give up everything else and come and join the civil services? So draw as many lines as you can between those 4 or 5 points of reference, which, as I said, is your employment detail, number 1, your employment. Number 2, your educational qualification, which is your 10th, 12th graduation. Number 3, the choice of subject which you have chosen for the mains, which is the optional subject. And 4th is the civil services. And don't make it look neat, just crisscross it, etc., to make as many lines this way or that way, to make sure that you have the basic question would actually be, with all these things, why do you want to join the civil services? So you have to prepare that answer very well. You have to prepare a good question in terms of why do you want to join the civil services. Remember those 2 pillars of I told you on which your entire personality test or the interview will happen, in respect and honesty. So this has to be honest answer. Please give very, very honest, straightforward answers. And normally Answers like, I want to serve the country more, I want to greatly serve my nation, seem hackneyed and not really, I mean, it could be one of the reasons, but I'm sure there's a better way to say it rather than I want to serve my country, which of course all of us want to serve. But be honest about and think about it. A lot of the things in which I'm asking you to really sit down and write the answers is which I'm asking you to sit down and think. Go back into time past, go back into history, and think of that time why this trigger happened. Was it a district collector who came to your college and gave a speech? Was it somebody who came for a prize distribution when you were in school? Was it an incident when you were going somewhere during the floods or during the calamity and you saw how the district administration, the police, and everybody was able to help the most vulnerable people in your place, in your city, or in your district? And you thought, okay, that's the job I'd like to do. Think about it. Go back into time and think of what was that trigger, what was that point that completely recalibrated your life and made you think that I should join the civil services. Write about it. Write about it in detail. And if a question is asked in terms of why you want to civil services, you studied this, and yet you want to join the civil services. How will you bring the experience or the knowledge of subject, optional, etc., or your past employment into that? Be honest and try and articulate your answer in such a way that it kind of gels into your life's ambition. It started at much earlier in life. That's the kind of data conversation that you have to prepare. And then you have to prepare and think and shrink and bring it down. That if this question is asked of me, this is how I will answer it. But employment details, please think about it in very, very good terms. Write them well, write good language, write the exact designation. Don't put shortcuts. Don't, for God's sake, put abbreviations. DIO or CAB or something like that, where they have to ask you, excuse me, what is CAB? What is the DIO? So I would, that you have, please, as far as possible, avoid abbreviations as far as the personal details of static data is concerned. In your DAF, it should be absolutely clear. Again, be prepared for the fact that if your employment ended about 3 years ago and you've not done anything else, sometimes there may be a question that there's been a gap. There'll be a gap. You were employed from this period to this period. And after that, for the last 2 or 3 years, I see that you've not been employed. What is it? If it's a factor that you've been preparing for the civil services, state it with the honesty that it deserves and mention it that, I was working and I realized that my ultimate objective in life was to become a civil servant or is to become a civil servant. And I realized that my employment was not allowing me to give the full kind of devotion and concentration that I need to do for the civil services. So I quit in 2000X, whatever. And for the last so many X number of days, I've been concentrating, and that's the reason for the gap. But be prepared to give a nice, respectful, honest answer. So what I'm again saying, write down these facts, write down the details, write down the data, and make sure that you are on this job, on the spot, in case that question is asked. But employment, yes, employment is a big ticket as far as questions on your personalities are concerned. Next up. This is all choice of center for examination, I think fairly okay. Language of medium examination. Language of medium for interview. Now, most of the people which I have met are normally give English or they give Hindi. Sometimes they give regional language. In the regional language, I think I explained to you earlier in my first session, which I had with you live, I am not too much in favor of an interpreter. Because for the reasons which I had explained over there, for some of you who are here again, and I see that some of you are here again, it takes 2 things. One, it takes double the time to be able to have the conversation on the same. Instead of a direct conversation, it goes to a person. From the person, it comes to you. And then from you, it goes back to the interpreter. And then it goes back to the panel. That is purely in time terms. I said it's not the best thing to happen. Because then they can only ask you maybe about 6 or 7 aspects on which they can have a conversation, the amount of time it takes. And number 2, there's a lot of value that drops in between the panel asking the question to the interpreter the interpreter telling you in the language which you, and by the way, most of the time you would have actually understood the question because you do know English and you do understand the language. But since you've asked for an interpreter, you have to wait patiently that, okay, let it come via the interpreter. And then your answer, again, you win a brilliant answer. But huge amounts of value drops in between the absorption of the by the interpreter and his narration to the panel. And you really can't at that point of time say, stop, stop, stop. I can see that a huge value is dropping off because I made this point and I made this point and I made that point. So I am, please let me tell you again with a great sense of assurance that you don't have to be perfect in your language. You have to be perfect in your content. You have to be perfect in your conversation. You have to be perfect as far as your respect is concerned. And you have to be perfect with the honesty of data which you are giving. Language is not, good language is not really the most important thing. And again, to repeat, I know of a girl who's from Tamil Nadu who had earlier asked for an interpreter, and her language is good. I gave her the encouragement and I said, you please go ahead and make sure that you can avoid the interpreter as far as possible. Good. The panel asked her for the interpreter. She said, no, I'll manage in English. And she's a 185 plus she got. Because I'm not saying that she got it because she went in for a direct conversation in whatever English that she had at her command, or whether she would have got more or less in the interpreter. But the fact is that I know of a person who, after having given another regional language as the medium for interview and requesting for an interpreter, dropped it, just spoke whatever she did from her heart straight away and got really good, successful. And she is an All India Service Officer now. She's right now an All India Service Officer serving the country. So that is as far as my take on interpreter is concerned. But these are some of the static data which is there. I will now be moving into the second part of my conversation with all of you, which is on the DAF 2, which you'll be filling up after the results are declared. And up till now, what are the points of concern? Please send them to me now. Subhanshi, sir, anything specific for 2020 graduates due to first batch being impacted by COVID? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. COVID is a historical milestone as far as the life of any and every human being on this planet is concerned. And if something historical happened happened because face-to-face classes stopped, it was a completely new experience. So you could be asked questions in terms of your experience during education during COVID. Specifically, there was something significant that you were doing during those years. That how did COVID impact your education? What do you think about face-to-face education versus online education? Which is better, or advantages, disadvantages? And I think yes, it is a point on which you should have enough information. You should be able to, if you can quote good research and good data which has been available on that, the impact of COVID on direct education or indirect education or online or face-to-face. There's enough number of literature that's available, both from a socio-cultural aspect of the bonding that you get when you're studying with peer groups, if you're studying with groups of people, to just studying sitting alone, to the transmission of knowledge aspect, to very importantly the fact of education in a new perspective altogether. Man is a social animal, all said and done. Man is a social animal, and that's we can't deny that. And sitting alone in a room has direct impact. So right from a socio-cultural, psychological to educational impact, medical impact of COVID, study a lot of data on that. In case a conversation is triggered on that aspect, you should be able to have a nice conversation. But yes, it is important that you prepare linkages of COVID to your life, to education, and the impact that COVID had. Yeah, it's a good point. Then, like I said, light semester was cut short by the lockdown and the finals of the correction of online. Our question will be formed around this. As I said, the question will normally be generic. I think I've answered you. What do you think was the impact of the COVID on your education? Would you like to elaborate? Because that's something that was unique. We have never, and I'm sure a lot of you have it. Any other students who have similar things? So I could, this question has been asked me by Sumanshi. And anyone else who have had experience of education or work and COVID, how did COVID impact your life? Please send it to me now and I'll try and answer them in terms of how you should prepare a conversational aspects of that. And then I am too. Okay, anyone else? Rahul. Rahul has said this. Rahul has said it is a cause of concern if I have been unemployed since graduation in a long time. I'll come to that. I'll come to that. Let's take COVID first. Sir, I studied from so-and-so BIT, Misra, which is different from BITS Pilani group. Should I study about BITS as well? Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. They may ask. See, BITS is a concept, Misra is a place. So it was the Birla philosophy that started these institutes of technology and science. Historically, you must know everything about BITS. Where was the first BITS formed, and where was the second, and what was the third. They will probably not ask you in terms of differences of campus, but you should definitely know. That's part of that education thing. I told you that data which you give for the education. So if you've studied in an institute of technology, which has got branches and institutions across the country, you must know about it. If it's named after an individual, like in this case, the Birla, so which Birla started it? G.T. Birla started it, which Birla started it. What was the trigger for him to go in for these institutes of technology? Was it that there's some very interesting stories that come out? Somebody was trying to go abroad and was rejected, and they said, no, there's no place for Indians or people from this part of the world. And he said, okay, you think you are the only ones who can do institutes of technology? I'll create an institute of technology, or I'll create an institute of commerce, or I'll create an institute of education, which is equivalent to the best in the world, and make sure that it's available at an affordable cost to the rest of the people. The interesting stories that happen around these things. You must know these things. You must know this, because that's when, whether it's, Chaitanya or it is anyone else who's asking this question, that's how conversations happen. When, they ask you something about BITS, Misra, and then you have this lovely conversation with a little bit of history woven into it, with a little bit of patriotism woven into this entire fiber of the conversation that you are doing. And then you kind of lace it with something else. And here's a masterpiece of a document that you created, a masterpiece of a garment which you have created in terms of a conversation which you can have on your educational background. That's what the panel is looking for. That's what gets you 210, 225 out of 275. How much do I want to listen? How much do I want to listen to this guy? That's what the panel would be looking at. And believe me, if it's a good conversation that happens, sometimes it happens that the conversation goes on for longer than what's real. And in all humility, please don't consider that, Vivek sir, you can call me Vivek sir. I think that's a nice name. Vivek Harinarayan is too long. Just call me Vivek sir. Vivek sir is trying to show off. Actually, it happened in the case when I went for my interview in the year 1980. I was the first, in fact. I was in table number 2, and the first the light that came up was table number 2, and I was the first on that table. So I was actually the first person who went. So a lot of the candidates also kind of gave me thaptis in the back and said, hey, best of luck, yeah, all the best for it. And I just went there. I mean, I didn't have no experience. It was my first attempt. And we went on and we talked about so many things from the detailed application. There was no one to coach me on DAF, by the way. I mean, this was just, I went honestly filled up the data that they had requested from me in the application form, and I knew about it. So conversations went around Taekwondo, which I was, I used to do. I used to sing. They asked me some question about singing. I had been onto television and asked me some question, television subject, sociology, etc., etc. And then at some point of time, one of the persons looked up to the panel and looked up at his watch and he says, "Wait, it's been 40 minutes or 35 minutes something." And then they realized that we had been having a conversation for almost 35 to 40 minutes. And they said, look, I think we should end it now. Well, thank you, Mr. Vivek, whatever. Thank you, Vivek. So the conversation was so good that we kind of went much over the time. Now, I'm saying you must try the conversation that you have in those 25 to 30 minutes in such a manner that somebody ultimately looks at the watch and says, wait, 35 minutes over. We were so mesmerized in the conversation that we were all enjoying so much that we didn't realize that we have overshot the time which is normally allocated to each one. That, as opposed to the fact that, they feel after 18, 20 minutes, enough is enough, yeah, I think it's over. So to make that good conversation, you must have good data. To make that good data, you have to do a lot of research. To do that research, you have to spend a lot of time. You have to start early and then be able to put it into nice conversational triggers, which you present to them in the form of an aromatic, this thing, and the aroma is so good that they smell it and they feel, wow, this was really good. So I think that's what I'm trying to ask all of you. And in this DAF session, what I'm trying to tell you is that there are many triggers in your DAF. There are many triggers in your DAF. In fact, any and every data in your DAF is a trigger point for the conversation trigger to happen. Okay, somebody said he has been unemployed for some time. It's okay. A lot of people would be in the same boat as you are, unemployed. As long as you're able to explain in a nice kind of way, a respectful kind of way, honest kind of way, as to why you have been. So somebody has said that, I think all of you have been impacted by the COVID. So probably prepare something on COVID as to what was the impact of the COVID on your education and what do you learn from it. And what would you do if you were, let's say, the education secretary of a state or the education secretary of the country, and something like this was to happen again? What are the steps that you will take to make it more interactive, to ensure that all the challenges that COVID brought to education, and about which, as I said, you must study the research, not only of India, but international research papers which have come. If you can quote some of those papers, quote some of that data, and then say what you will do to make sure that those challenges are overcome, I think you're on top of the heap. So that's far as education in COVID is concerned. I have a B degree. After that, I did LLB, and you're doing law. What kind of questions can I expect on my educational background? I think simple would be, I think B degree in law is an example. This question has come to me from somebody who calls AU to U. Now, I know are you be complimentary, but I'm sure your AU stands for obviously your initials. But Hindi में जैसे अगर if you were to talk about it in Hindi तो लगेगा जैसे AU to U. Anyway, so Mr. AU, if you can write your full name, I'd be very happy. But the fact is, you're asking, all of you are asking this question, that if I have done my graduation in one subject and I'm doing my post-graduation in another subject, what kind of question I can expect? That why did you make that shift? And with that kind of educational background, where you have a technical education up to a certain level, and let's say a non-technical, in this case, legal, it could be anything. It could be journalism, you specialize in something. Ask yourself, what have you done and why did you shift? And as I said again, just give a very honest answer. So if you thought that you would, with your engineering degree, you probably did not want to pursue engineering as a job, as an education, fine, but not as a vocation. And you thought that a better vocation for you would be law, or you were planning to give law as an exam subject for your mains exam for whatever reason you want to do, you could mention that. Just go back honestly and think about it. But yes, you can expect questions if there is a drastic change between your graduation and your post-graduation subjects. In this case, as I said, engineering on one side, B, and suddenly law. Or it could be, as I said, it could be, suddenly you could be doing journalism or something like that. Mention your fact, but the fact what I'm trying to highlight is that any such information which is a little out of the normal. So you've done B, ME, fine. But you've done B and another subject, or you've done BSc and then you suddenly move over to something else. If you have done that shift, you can expect a conversational trigger to come, because that will be a question that will arise in the mind of the panel as to why did he do it? And they would like to ask you, why did you do it? So with that, we've come to 7 o'clock now, and can we go on to the second part, or what about your cups of coffee? I hope all of you got your cups of coffee. If you've not got a cups of coffee, I'll answer some questions, but meanwhile you can quickly go and pick up some, as I said, some coffee or tea or whatever that you would like to do, and we will come back in about 2 or 3 minutes. Meanwhile, any other questions? You can unmute yourself and also ask, not a problem. Any other questions? You can unmute yourself and ask them, not a problem. So, any other questions? Otherwise, if you think the chat is the best way to do it, no issues. But otherwise, as I said, please don't hesitate. You can always unmute yourselves, and we can. You can ask me the question straight away in whichever language you're comfortable. Not a problem at all. Okay, so we go on to the second part now, which is the DAF 2 areas of focus. We've already covered the static data of. We already covered the static data part of it in, which is, as I said, DAF 2 again, the name, mobile, mother's tongue, place of birth, parents' information, all those things you've already done. The next part would be, now this is where it becomes important. This is what I call the non-static data, which is your personal details. This is where I want your specific attention. It's very, very important that you think about any questions in terms of non-static data? Let's start with the questions now first. And because I want to make sure that some of you are really there and, actively listening. So what do you think are the significance of what are the challenges, questions that you have with regard to non-static data? Raise your hand. Subhashini, you can raise your hand. Yeah, show view. Viewer. You'd like to switch on your camera and unmute yourself, or whichever way is okay with you.
So,
Subhashini, you can answer. Hi, Swat.
So my question essentially.
You have to unmute yourself. Please.
So, am I audible now?
I can't hear you for some reason. I don't know. Just check the volume of our system.
Is it better now, sir?
Yeah, I'm just getting the volume up. Yeah, please speak.
Okay. So my question around this part is basically categorizing the different things under these headings. So, like some few points that I wanted to ask was that if we have some scientific research experience during our graduation, which heading would be ideally suited to put that in? And like if we haven't done much in sports throughout our lives, what and how to deal with that column?
Okay. So I suppose that will probably come under medal scholarship if you've done some research papers or presentations, something like that. Then the first thing I would like to tell all of you is that, and I'm glad you come out with this question, is that, again, please don't think of that I didn't do anything significant. What you might consider not very significant could actually be something very significant as far as requirements of the qualities for a civil servant is concerned with that UPSC panel. So that's point number one. So don't underrate yourself. Think, as I said, last time also, I think Subhashini was also there, I remember last time also. What did I tell you about that Kaun Banega Crorepati? As far as I'm concerned, all of you guys are Crorepatis. You're a star. You have already arrived at a point where 9 lakh people wanted to arrive. Then 4.5, actually 5 lakhs actually wrote and wanted to arrive. You already arrived at that point. You are at 14,624. You're already very special. Very, very special. And not just very, very special, from out of you will now be chosen another set of people who will then be facing this personality test. So to all of you who are listening and to some of the videos that will be made, and I can please tell your friends and all also, think, go back. Even if you were the class monitor in some place, even if you did a small leadership role in, you were the head of the elocutional wing of your school, or the head of the drama department of your particular thing, whatever, think about it. And because it says position of distinction and leadership held in school and college. Now, so what you might consider insignificant might be very significant from a personality test perspective. So, number one point, as I said, please do not underestimate your talents. Please do not try and think that, should I actually put it, oh, let us forget about it. But so again, prize is one. In school, in earlier it used to be about state level and all those things, but they're very good. But whatever prize you won, whatever medals you won, whatever scholarships you got at a significant level, say 10th, 11th, 12th onwards, etc., please mention that. Sports, it says sports NCC. It does not say that you won the event. You participated in sports. If you NCC, of course, if you participated in NCC or scouts or anything else, please remember to mention that. If it's sports, if you participated in certain sports also, it's good. It does not necessarily that you came first in class, or you came first in that race, or you came first in that high jump, or first in whatever sport that you played in. There are many, see, I'll tell you what. The greatest character that sports reveal is that you are a team person. For me, that is the most important. So if you played any team game, Kho, whatever, and it doesn't have to be some high funda game like maybe as India and cricket is very popular, so it's cricket. But it's a team game, and you saw what happened yesterday. I mean, we were like a 10 upon 10 till we reached the finals, and in the finals you saw that how it was not. Of course, Travis Head did a marvelous job, but it had not been for that catch which he had taken of Rohit Sharma earlier, or the way Warner was running around and inspiring the people, saving those boundaries. It was a team game. So the whole team was inspired. And that is what I'm trying to say, that if you have played any game which is a team game at school level, college level, please mention it. Because it teaches you that you are part of a team and that you're not the most important person as far as the pursuit of success is concerned. And that same team spirit will make you a better leader, a better collector, better SP, a better commissioner of income tax, because you'll realize that inside of you from the childhood time, you'll be able to reveal through your DAF that is this very, very strong character that I need to play it with my team. And my team is as important as I am. So one, as I said, please remember to include whatever sports you've taken part in, mention that. Number two is positions of distinction or leadership which has been held in school or college. Now, again, it could be, as I said, class leader, class monitor, whatever it is. Please remember to mention it. But language should be, again, language in which you put it should be nice and crisp. If it's too long and too boring, then what will happen is probably it will be overlooked. It has to be. So again, you have to, as I said earlier, you have to think and shrink. This is what I want to write about the sports. This is what I want to write about the position of leadership which I held in school/college. How can I put it in that best language that it will attract them to ask me and have a conversation on this non-static data as far as my personal details are concerned. Okay, just to give you certain things which you might be very fond of, but I think they are hugely avoidable, is like giving vague information. Now, when it comes, especially it comes to extracurricular activities and interests, hobbies, I have many DAF where I feel that, watching TV, watching television. I mean, watching television, how is it an extracurricular activity or an interest or a hobby in any sense of the word? And what are you trying to show when you're saying that I'm fond of watching TV? basically that you're just sitting on a couch and sitting in, watching an idiot box and probably going on eating something. That's it. Now, how does that in any way translate to the fact that you will make a damn good civil servant? But if you are watching television for certain specific kind of programs, that watching Discovery Channel on this thing, or watching the lives of certain historical persons on the television channel, you could mention that. So even something like watching television, if it shows that you have a certain interest which is there, which is your interest in the history of people's lives, or places, which means on the Discovery Channel, or on the animal side, if that shows that you have a love for knowledge, you have a love for knowing new things and including that into your library of resources, I think it's a good thing. So it's important how you project your personality. Remember, this is your personality test, and the detailed application form is going to be a basis for your personality test. So go back again. Any questions now on this particular what I've said? Because that's something on which a lot of people have, some hands have been raised. Please, Aditya Chandan, please go ahead. Subhan. And are there more people there?
Sir, good evening.
Subhashini and Aditya Chandra, I mean, most of the questions seems to be coming from them.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, Aditya, go ahead.
Sir, I have experience in cricket for a decade, and I have represented in various levels, sir. Like I have represented state, and I have been a net bowler for CSK team and Team India. Then I have represented county. It's a first class cricket in England. Should I dump all this in
Not at
my?
all, not at all. It's like saying what is educational qualification? You start, I did my class 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, then I did my graduation, did my MA, and then I did my PhD. If somebody asks you, what's your educational qualification? If you say, I've done my doctorate in XYZ, obviously everything else before that you have done. So I would say you should highlight not on the highest two levels that you achieved, whichever game. So if you played for the state, so let's say for the if you played for the country, so represented India in so and so in whichever sport, at what event, when. That's enough. Because if you have reached India, obviously you would have played district, you would have played state, you would have played, then only you reach India. Again, if it's chess, again, I've seen people, I won chess tournaments at my school level, college level, Falana level, Falana level, Falana level. I mean, if you are a grandmaster with a certain score and you represented India in a particular international chess tournament, it goes without saying that you would have crossed all those milestones before you reach your final destiny or you reach your final milestone. So to Aditya and all the other people who are here, if you can in your journey avoid the milestones which are the minor ones which you have already traveled through, and you can talk the last mile. We talk about the last mile, which is the most significant mile at the national, international, or state level of your achievement in any of the sport. Mention that. The question when it's triggered, then maybe you, if you want to use the data, you could do it. But depending again on the question, you don't even have to mention it. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir.
Aditya, are you okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Subhashini, yes. Your question was you've not played any sports, is it?
Yes, sir, a follow-up question on what you said regarding mentioning anything and everything we have done. So, sir, like if we have done something, say in class 8th or class 10th, is it safe enough to mention it because it has been like more than a decade or so since that time, and we do not remember a lot of it. Like, say, suppose about a sport only.
Can you give me
So,
an example? Because whatever you're asking is actually a challenge which other people maybe are not feeling shy to ask. But these are challenges which I think all of you are facing. So if you can give me a concrete example of what you think you did in 10, which was not
so
very
suppose I played chess in at city level or maybe at school level, like representing my school somewhere. But that was the last time I did it. Say, suppose in class 10th or 11th. So is it, and I have not touched that game since then. So is it safe enough to mention it? like it is any sports would go into a lot of depth if we mention it, and they can go into a lot of depth. So what
Yeah,
should
I
we?
mean, if you have not, if you've done it in class 8th or 9th, 10th level, as you said, represented in the school level, which is it's a significant level, but not obviously at a state or higher level, you could even consider not putting it in the data. Because then
Okay.
a question will come, why did you pursue it? Then you might be having to share that I didn't find it interesting or whatever it is. And there could be somebody who's a chess player over there, or who's also a
Yes.
chess player and might feel terribly offended that, okay, you think chess is a boring game, it's a bad game, whatever. So I would say that if it is something, when it says position of distinction or positions of things like that, then it's something that obviously you are passionate about and which you have carried forward beyond your class 10th level. Now, some things which you did at the class 12th level, or let's say initially graduate level, for which you never got the opportunity to do it later on, that you can always mention. I mean, it was
Okay.
something unique to your institution or unique to that situation today. There's no harm in mentioning, because an honest answer would be that it's still very close to my heart. But as we moved from, let's say, an army school, so where there I used to do pistol shooting in class 12, but then we moved to another city where this facility was not available. Still dear to my heart, but I couldn't pursue it. So something like that, which you still hold dear to your heart and passion, but you couldn't because you can justify it in a nice kind of way, I think you can mention. But things like, as you said, chess, you did up to 8, 10, but didn't play after that, I would not recommend.
Okay. So definitely then I'll be able to find something else in the recent past also. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah. Anyone else? Some more chats are there. Madhu Pratap. Okay, you say that Rahul says, sir, what if you gave up a game due to lack of opportunity? Actually, I think I answered that, isn't it? I answered that. I mean, if you are doing swimming, you mentioned. I think that's very clear. Let's say swimming, shooting, or games which require a certain amount of infrastructure, which was available at some stage in your life where you were studying or you had the opportunity, but then you moved into a job and you moved into a semi-urban place where this thing was not there. I think you can mention it. It's good. It's good to mention that if you can justify. See, please do understand that whatever I'm trying to tell you in terms of your detailed application form does not mean all those questions will be asked. But it does, what I'm guiding you on, that in case, and which is again, which I've been saying again and again, in case a data which is there on your DAF, a question is asked or a conversational trigger is thrown at you, you cannot say, I don't. You should not say, I don't. So please do, and it is something, all those conversational triggers or that data which you put into your detailed application form should bring out a certain unique aspect of your personality, which is very clearly in alignment with what they are seeking when they're looking for personality traits for joining in civil services. So that's the bottom line. I mean, that's something that you constantly need to keep in your mind and make sure that you utilize it. So Rahul, you said swimming, it's fine. Jogging, cycling, gardening, bonsai, Dinesh, oh my God. Okay, again, some of you may have many such hobbies. For instance, I've just got from Dinesh, he says that he wants to, he does jogging, cycling, gardening, bonsai culture as my hobby. I mean, I hope, Dinesh, can you come on voice and then let's speak.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Can you just put on your camera also?
Sir, actually, my camera is not working, sir.
Okay, fine. Look, you said many things. I mean, are you into gardening, bonsai gardening only, or all kinds of gardening?
No, sir. I like terrarium, bonsai, and the backyard gardening, like that things, sir. Home gardening,
No, I mean,
rooftop, like that.
is it vegetable gardening? Is it flower gardening? Is it what?
Yes, sir. As well as vegetable gardening in my home places, and within my room, I am practicing bonsai culture and terrarium gardening, like that things.
Fine. So if your hobby is gardening, for all of you, first of all, let me mention the fact that if your hobby is gardening, please make sure that you mention what kind of gardening. So if it is ornamental plants gardening, mention that. If it is flowers and flower gardening, it's fine. If it's vegetable gardening, mention vegetable gardening. Because fact of the matter is, somebody who had mentioned gardening was actually asked by the panel to step out of the room. And normally these interviews take place in January, February, March, April, which is actually the flowering season in Delhi. And your UPSC center has fantastic gardens. Was actually asked to step out and identify 4 or 5 flowers. I hope you get the point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you are into gardening, number one, be specific about it. That I do rooftop vegetable gardening. Nothing wrong. So then they will say that, okay, you are doing rooftop gardening. Any reason why you're doing so? Maybe you could mention the fact that, I mean, I live in an apartment that does not have space for gardening, though I would love to do it. So I'm doing rooftop vegetable gardening. As a hobby, and you can always say, considering the price of vegetables, sometimes it becomes a very profitable hobby also, sir. So you've got to make it little light, and you've got to make it hilarious, and you've got to make you have to be also show them that you are aware of what the prices of vegetables are, because sometimes tomatoes were becoming 100 rupees a kilo. So if you're growing, I'm jealous of you if you're growing vegetable gardening and you're growing tomatoes in this thing. When I was going to the market and paying 100 rupees a kilo. So be specific. So if it is cycling, then you have to mention what kind of cycling. Dinesh,
Okay, sir.
if it is, see, jogging is actually not a hobby or any extra activity. I mean, jogging is what, unless you're doing it regularly, and then you also take part in half-mile marathons and stuff like that. So it's like saying morning walk. Morning walk, a lot of people do, or jogging do, but I wouldn't. It's not exciting enough to be asked a question and show a certain trait of your personality. But if you are jogging, and if you are one of those who does jogging and half-mile marathons, then it makes sense, because then you are showing that you have the perseverance, you have the endurance, and you pursue with full vigor, which means I do jogging in the morning, and I have done, in which case you should also be able to tell about which are the half marathons which you have taken part in, and I took, and what are your timings, which could also lead to the fact that who are the famous marathon runners now, who are the first famous marathons of the past. So if you are, I would say jogging is okay. Cycling, again, you'll have to mention what kind of cycling do you do. Is it just the morning kind of cycling that you do? But the more specific you are in your extracurricular activities and hobbies, to that extent, the conversation that will happen will also have to be specific, because it can go into tangential. If you're saying cycling, then you must know all about the famous cycle races that take place across the world. The one that takes it in France, but the other one, the Tour de France, and who are the famous people of that. He was again involved in a controversy. The famous winner of the Tour de France for many years, he was involved in a controversy. You must know the full data. I hope I'm getting to, you're getting the point that I'm trying to make, because please remember, as far as the panel is concerned, it's a conversational trigger. And somebody might be an avid follower of cycling. So he can ask you so many questions on cycling. So if you say I'm a cyclist, then you must be able to also, in case a conversation comes around cycling, you should be able to have a nice kind of informed, knowledgeable conversation around cycling. To that extent, you have to prepare. But if cycling is there, I think it's a good thing. Somebody said, Madhu said, I've studied in a Christian mission school, charity school every time when foreigners visit India, which is quite frequent. I'm used for translation various occasions, like during the free medical camp to translate, and during church. Okay, now Madhu Pratap, while you could just mention the fact that you have done translation. I think you could translation. You could say translation for translation. Yeah, I think you can mention the fact 4 years from my 7th to the 10th. I think nothing wrong. You can say I worked as a translator for 4 years in school. Mention that. Worked as a translator for 4 years in school. And then when suppose the question is asked, then you can always mention the fact that, I was good in both languages, English, whatever. What was the reason why you were chosen as a translator? And what was the specific question that a lot of foreign people used to, and mention the fact that I studied in a missionary school, and a lot of people would come to our school who would otherwise not know the local language. And so I was asked to do this thing, and I found it really interesting. And I thought I should include it because that's something unusual. As a small child in school, you are being, made a translator, which means wherever these VVIPs went, I also used to travel with them, and I used to feel a sense of pride. It was a great opportunity. So that's the reason I mentioned that. Worked as a translator for 4 years in school. Nothing wrong. I think it's a good point. Oh, chess is definitely a sport, Rahul. Yes. Is there a difference between a sport and a game? That's a technical one. I may not know the answer straight away. I can always ask my team to check on that. But I think, chess you can mention you can definitely mention chess as a sport or a game, whichever way you like to call it. Provided, as I said, you have followed it up and you are following it up till now. Be prepared, as I said, that again for a lot of questions on chess, because chess is something that's followed quite widely. And so all about the young boy from Tamil Nadu who recently paid, the Norwegian Carlsen and lost, of course, but went very well. So a lot of what will happen is all these people may not know too much about the game chess, but most of them would definitely be aware of what are the current events or the happenings or the news that is happening around that particular game or sport, whichever way you'd like to call it. You would be expected to know that also, besides the technicality of the game and the sport. So sometimes you find panels which also go very, very technical, like how many squares and what is the significance of that number of squares and all kinds of questions. So I would suggest that if you're chess or you're hockey, then typically what are the changes which have taken place in hockey? If it's cricket, then what's the difference between the red ball and the white ball cricket? Some of those kind of questions can happen. So if you're putting a particular data in your detailed application form, DAF 2, make sure you have enough data on that. You have enough information and details on it. That's why it says detailed application form. So you must have the details and be able to make a conversation around that. Somebody else has asked another question. Let's go up again.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Who is this PS? Somebody's PS. Who's PS?
Purnima, sir, myself, sir, Purnima, sir. Purnima Sudan, sir.
Purnima?
Sudan.
Sudan. Okay. Hi, Purnima. Please tell me.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, I just have one doubt. During my school, as a part of NSS, we had a camp of like 7 days at Narkanda, and I've done an elementary skiing course there. But after that, I didn't get any opportunity to pursue skiing. So should I mention that aspect or not, sir?
Absolutely mention it.
Okay.
A group camp or going for these camps actually. So what did you learn from that? I mean, let's switch it into an interview. Purnima, I see from your database that you had gone. You mentioned you gone on a camp. Something you mentioned.
Yes, sir. So NSS camp, yes, sir.
Yes, you mentioned you got an LSS camp.
Yes,
What
sir.
is it that you? Why did you mention this, and what do you think were your learnings?
So first,
I'm the chairman of the civil services. Assuming that you have cleared the names you're appearing for the interview, this is your question. Let's hear your answer.
yes, sir. So firstly, I learned about living in a place that was totally different. We were at Narkanda. The temperature was very freezing, and to live there, to sustain lives, like about cooking foods, having our meals, that was a totally different experience. Secondly, learning about the adventure sports, especially the skiing, which I have never done in my life. Though initially it was quite fearful, but I think it was able to bring new kind of adrenal rush in me, and it was quite a unique experience in my life. And so lastly, just tell about life, that every challenge in our life we can face with heads on. Like for example, skiing, because initially I was quite fearful, but I was able to complete that camp successfully. So these were certain learnings, sir.
Okay, good, very good. I think the first that you broke it up into first, second, third. Now let me give you a little bit of this is a coaching for all of you now. I think first thing is that very well done, Purnima, because I just shot the question, and I'm sure you've not prepared a written answer for that. But this is the kind of question that is normally asked. So I think the first thing that you mentioned was there were a lot of uncertainties, and you dealt with them in a very nice way. So I think the good point. So if you were to make a point on that, is that learning was number one. You've got to make your way through unknown, and that number one. Number two, you said whatever, use your resources. Number three, take things head on, and whatever head on, and ultimately you didn't know the camp for which you'd gone, but you went on to it and learned about it. The good thing is that you have been able to, number one, best is to give answers point-wise. Whenever a question like this is asked, and this is the point where you should use your hand and you should say point number one, point number two, and point number three. Remember, this is a test of your personality for the civil services. If you can weave your answer in a manner that you can show that the learning has something to do with the new job that you want to take over and take on as a civil servant, and that can be laced in. So a good, I'm not saying that your answer was, I'm saying your answer was good, but if you could lace it to the fact that the civil services also presents us that we have no choice. We are given a posting, we are given a state, and this coaching camp was exactly like that. I mean, you just land up in a place, you don't know what the terrain is, you don't know what the, of course, you've done some research, but you actually physically have not been there. So the one great learning was, number one, that no matter every time the circumstances are not in the way you want them to be, but irrespective of what the circumstances are, you're able to learn. Number two, I'm sure teamwork would have helped. You would not have been alone. It would have been.
Yes.
So team is something that, again, are you a team person or are you an individual person, is something that is a character that they're looking for. So try and bring a team person aspect also. That, I learned that everything is possible when the whole team gets together. So that's the second. And the fact that you used your hand and use your hands to, I couldn't see you, but the fact is, if you can use your hands to articulate answers, it's very good. So thank you, Purnima, for that answer. But to go back to, should I use it? Yes. As I said, now you found it, yes. Even though it was a camp for 7 days, and you won't have an opportunity to pursue it again and again, but it taught you so many things. And this is like on the spot, you've given that answer. Now, if you go back and actually relive that particular time when you went to the camp, I'm sure you'll be able to find out at least 3 or 4 things which you will learn in that nice kind of way, which will also help you that as a civil servant, when you come into the job, it will help you. And that goes for all of us. So should I mention it? I think you must mention it. Don't you think now can I ask you, Purnima, should you mention it or you should not mention it?
Yes, sir, I should, sir. Yes.
It's a very positive point. It's a very positive point. It's a very positive point. The duration of the time is not important. It's the large learning that you had during that 7 days, which is really more important, which is all about, that the individual is important, but I think the team is more important. Number 2, adapt to whichever circumstances you do. Number 3, make do with all the resources that are available to you, and all of the time it will not be all the things that you want. And number 4, as I said, the spirit that every small step matters, and like maybe Neil Armstrong, Neil Armstrong said that it's a small step for the sea, but a giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
So it was a small step for me, but it was a giant leap as far as my personality is concerned. So that's the kind of answer that you must learn to weave around small incidents with the life. You don't have to be big. It doesn't have to be big ticket events that happen. Sometimes the greatest of learning is from the smallest of incidents in your life. And I think you should mention it, but be able to show that how from that little small incident, it has made you a bigger, better, and more resourceful person whose characteristics can be utilized for the civil services. Any other question? recently I've cleared is please, somebody has mentioned about that clearing an exam and then not joining. I think it's best to mention it. No information, and you must have an answer why you did not join, because I would suggest that don't hide any information. You could deliberately not give some information which you think is totally insignificant, like as I said, Subhashini mentioned about having played chess in school level, but having never done it after that. So that's okay. It's personal to you. But if you cleared the SSA, some examination which is held by state level or union level, and you've got a posting and you've not joined, nothing wrong with it. I mean, a lot of people do that because it just also in some way shows that the single focused attention that you have for making and preparing yourself for the civil services. So I wouldn't like you to hide any data. Make it brief and mention that. Please also remember, all of you, and that all the data that you, as I said, while every data in your DAF is the possibility of a conversation trigger, it's only possible that nothing may be a trigger. They may not even ask you a single question. Just that you have to be prepared. And in case something which is there in your DAF comes up, and you can't say, I don't know. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Extracurricular activities and interests such as hobbies, this is, I think, very important again. Think about all the things that you do and list out not more than 2 or 3. Too many things also can look a little cluttered, and then what happens is that they tend to just overlook the entire hobbies section because you've mentioned so many things. Or 1 or 2 things you've written, but you've written like 8, 9 lines on it. So one part of the preparation for your DAF is also to using certain keywords and important, not more than 3 or 4 words if possible, but making it specific. Specific is very important. Don't put vague data like cooking or, as you said, gardening, cooking. It's too vague. It can take you anywhere. Cooking especially can take you anywhere, especially men who are into a hobby of cooking. If you are into a cooking of a particular genre or a particular type of a particular state of a particular region, mention that. Because otherwise, if you're a pure vegetarian and you just mentioned cooking and somebody asks you that, will you please prepare a non-vegetarian dish belonging to the Middle East or somewhere from the Southeast Asia part of it. And then you're stumbling and saying, no, sir, I'm a vegetarian. I don't even look at meat. You haven't put it. I mean, all you said is cooking. You haven't mentioned that. So if you are into cooking, and let's say if you're a vegetarian, you're very fond of cooking home cooked food, South Indian style, North Indian style, Punjabi style, mention that. One of my hobbies is home cooked vegetarian Punjabi style cooking. Then they'll stick to that. I mean, if they want to ask you questions, they'll be sticking to that. And then you are a master of that, you're a chef in that. So you can answer that with confidence. And it becomes it gives you many, many plus points. So that's what I'm trying to say, that when you're filling in your DAF, give it a thought. Exactly what do I do? What is the right words that will describe it? And what are those words that I will use in my DAF that it can possibly trigger, to my advantage, a conversational trigger? That's the point that I'm trying to make out in extracurricular. But think and don't miss out on anything which you think might be small. As you said, even a 7-day camp can be very important. A 5-day excursion somewhere is good. A visit from the school to some historical places which was good, and you found it in this thing. It's very good. I think you should mention that. And we go on to the next part, which is any questions on this because before we move away from the screen, because this is really important. If there's anything else, but otherwise, then we'll move on to the next one.
Hi, sir, Chandra Prabha here. Hello.
Chandra Prabha, yes. Hi, Chandra Prabha, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very well.
Thank you. So, sir, I'm actually struggling at the exact advice you gave us. I'm struggling to trim down my hobbies. Just was wondering how to go about thinking how to prioritize them, because I don't want this interview to scatter.
So, I mean, what are your hobbies?
Okay, so I'll just list them. The first is community organizing. Now, each of my hobby has been linked with my work in the past or current work as well. So, first is community organizing, which includes Swachhta Abhiyans, river cleaning, beach cleaning. The second is teaching children specifically life skills. Third is nature walks, including bird watching at the beginner level. And the fourth is volunteering to work with dogs. And I'm very passionate about all four of them. Not sure on how to prioritize which one.
The way they prioritize it now, the first one and the third one kind of link together. It can be woven into each other.
Okay, yes.
Okay. The second one is a good standalone. I think that's good enough. The first one you mentioned was community, because obviously it's you've done that sort of work here. And the
Yes.
language that you'll have to use would be that you make sure that you bring in the element of volunteerism, which is your third hobby, into the first one.
Okay, we'll do that.
So my team is here. I mean, we can
Yeah.
even help to articulate. Not a problem.
All right.
I think two is more than enough. Two is more than enough. The first two is enough. And while talking about any of the two, you could see the point is that you're not. You're providing a trigger. You're not providing a paragraph. The paragraph
Yes.
is what will be the conversation. So you provide triggers. If you are, see, basically it should be irresistible triggers in your data. That if somebody reads that trigger, is forced to ask, "Bhai, ye kya hai yaar? Ye kya hai?
Yes.
What is this? Ye kya hai? Iske baare mein batao."
That is my goal as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that should be the goal of all of you. You know, Chaitanya and Rahul, Khagen, Madhu, I mean, so many of you are here, the large numbers here. I would say that should be your goal, that what is that language and what is the curiosity should kill the panel's cat. You have to do that.
Got it. Okay.
As I said, the cat is the panel is the cat and the cat is the panel, whatever way you like to put it. That trigger point in your DAF should kill them. Okay, if I cannot leave without asking, ye kya hai? What is this? And that is where you have maneuvered them. See, this is my part of my other coaching, but I tell you, each of your answers should leave enough baits like an earthworm in a fishing rod. You know, it kind of dangles in the front of it, and when the fish comes and catches it, actually fish thinks it has caught the earthworm, but actually it's the fish which has got caught. You must leave enough earthworms in your answer, which when the panel catches it, it thinks that, okay, I've caught this candidate now. But actually the panel has been caught because you led them on to your strongest point, about which you'll roll out the next capsule of conversation for the next 90 seconds in the most brilliant, shining manner. And your entire conversation should be a series of you putting earthworms and they catching them. If your 5 or 6 of your earthworms are caught, you are 225 without a doubt. Now, I leave that DAF is the first earthworm. I hope all of you are listening. If you're listening, just put your thumbs up. Your DAF data should be put in such a manner that it should be like that earthworm in a fishing rod. The panel must catch it. If you have understood what I'm trying to say, at least put a thumbs up. But in the chat, say yes, okay, so that, and I can tell you, I will tell you how to do it. Did I give you the example of that girl who topped about maybe 6 years ago? Yeah, 2017, I think. 6 years ago. Now listen to the story. So this girl walks in and she's from Banaras. Okay. And so the first question was, "Oh, wow, you're coming, hi, come inside, please." And we see you're from Varanasi. Varanasi is a very interesting place. And tell us something about Varanasi. So she started off by saying, "Sir, I'm from Varanasi, which is the constituency of the Honorable Pride." By the time she came to Pride, they put their hand up. Stop. We already know that this is the constituency of the Honorable Prime Minister of India. Tell us something which you find interesting about Varanasi. She said, can I take time for a couple of seconds to think about it? I said, sure. Sure enough, a couple of seconds later, She said the first thing I would rate Banaras, why I love Banaras, is because of Banarsi Pan. Mr. Amitabh Bachchan also made it famous by saying "Kha ke pan Banaras wala." It's unique because it's the only place where they use raw tobacco instead of cooked tobacco. The second, as a lady, I can say is that Banarsi sari. Even if a woman has 4 or 5 saris in a wardrobe, she would definitely want there should be one sari which is a Banarsi sari, and I love Banaras for that. And the third most important reason why I like Banaras is because of Banarsi Masti. What do you think would be the reaction of the panel? Please talk to me. Leon. Quickly. Let's see some.
So I think they would appreciate her for personalizing her answer and making it unique. So it's
What
also
is-
memorable.
That she stops. She said the third most important reason for me to like Banaras is because of Banarsi Masti. The obvious question was, what is Banarsi Masti? Okay? And then her answer was mind-blowing. She said Banarsi Masti is the innate capacity of the people of Banaras to remain thrilled with life even when their pockets are empty. मतलब जेब खाली है लेकिन दिल भरा हुआ है. And when she was leaving, they said, so you are the girl with the Banarsi Masti. And she said, yes, sir, the girl with the Banarsi Masti. So basically, that's the point. Now, if she would have not paused, that's the bait. If she would have just said, and my last reason would be Banarsi Masti, where you can feel a sense of satisfaction when you have nothing. Maybe your pockets are also empty, but you still feel that you are full in life and you are able. It's very weak. You pause at that significant moment where they are forced to ask you. So, which is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. You have to stop at those points where the panel is forced to ask you that, excuse me, that last point you made, can you elaborate on that? Because you stopped, you didn't even want to talk about it. And then you come out with your next brilliant capsule and elaborate on that. That's the art of conversation, which I will obviously teach you in some moment of time. So have I covered most of any other questions on that? Otherwise, we'll go on to the last 1 or 2 slides and that. Next question. Next slide. Slide. Okay, another data that will be asked of you, of course, is your order of preference for a state card with zone. You'll have to find out your zones first, and you'll have to give it. It's something that you'll have to apply your mind to, and that's something I have no comments about. But normally there'll be not many questions on. Everybody normally gives their first preference as home state, whichever zone that is in, and then of course closer to home, whatever it is. The last slide, of course, is in terms of your service preferences, which is 01 IAS Foreign Service 2-3. There again, it's fairly standard, and it's fairly standard that normally people give the Indian IAS or something. In case for certain reason, I have come across a DAF where a lady had given IPS as the first preference. So if you have a choice of preference which is not the normal usual, which is normally IAS, IPS, and sometimes now revenue services are on top in Indian foreign services. Foreign services come like, you have to list most of the services. I think best is to list most of the services. Foreign services is coming far below me in the preference list now, which is entirely different from the time when we gave the service. When we gave the IAS in late 70s and 80, the top bracket went to the foreign service. So it was I'm from the foreign service, means okay, he was in the top 20 or 25 or 30. It's entirely different now, where the topper of the Indian Foreign Service probably starts at 35 or 40 or whatever, I don't know. But the fact is that you have to mention your order of preferences. Normally, it will be whatever is what you want. If you don't want to give Indian Foreign Service at all, you can put it way down. I mean, it's you may not get it. But if there is a choice of service or your order of preference is completely different from what normally people put it, which is, as I said, IAS, IPS, and then maybe customs or income tax or whatever else you think, and then foreign service and Indian audit account services, etc. Then you should be prepared to ask questions. You should be prepared that they may ask you a question. Normally, they don't go up to this page. They stop with hobbies and extracurricular activities. So just go back 2 slides. They normally stop with this extracurricular hobbies and all. There's not much of questioning in terms of your choice of state, unless it's drastically different for some reason, which they normally also don't see. And your choice of service, again, which is so drastically different that they may be forced to ask me. See, because then it becomes like a obvious earthworm. It becomes an obvious wiggling earthworm which they'll have to catch, saying, why have you given income tax as your first preference and nothing else, or something like that. So it's not that, I would assume that there will be not many questions. Let's last slide. Okay, so I told you about the importance of DAF, and I told you that every data, you can't say I don't know DAF and IAS focus. Now, what I'm trying to talk to you about is the importance of the first 5 minutes. Now, I have been in conversation with members of who have served as chair, as well as who have been members of the UPSC panel for the selection of the civil services. Normally, the first 5 minutes of your so-called conversation time will be from your DAF. That is why I want to tell you that's the importance of DAF. It is the first impression that you will get a chance to make or break. And you don't get a second opportunity to do that. So it's important that those first 5 minutes are very well articulated, a good conversation time. And again, 50% of your marks in the conversation or the interview are decided in these first 5 to 7 minutes. 50%. 20 to 25% marks are decided in the last 5 to 10 minutes, which is your discussion on your hobbies or your interests and how can you link it to qualities that will reveal your administrative brilliance or that you are the person who's suited for the civil services. About 20% in the last 5 minutes. And first 5 to 7 minutes is the most important, underline, bold, capital, most important aspect of your entire conversation time. And it's on the DAF. So now you get to understand how important DAF is. It's the make or break of your entire personality. And typically, as I said, it's all about you. It's about the place you're from. It's the state you're from, your profession, your job, your employment, all that static data which I talked to you about. The non-static data will be the last part. The static data would be the point where you will be asked to with the first 5 segments. You have to be absolutely brilliant with that. Now, any doubts, any questions on this very significant statement which I have made, saying that the first 5 to 7 minutes of your conversation time actually decide about 50% of the marks that you will finally get. And that is normally on the DAF. Any doubts, any questions for the last 2-3 minutes, and then 5 minutes more, and I'll be winding up. Somebody said, can we skip Indian Foreign Service altogether? Yes, you can, but if you put it fairly low in your preference, it will automatically get skipped. Somebody raised a hand, and that is whoever's raised your hand. If you could just.
Sir, I'm Aditya, sir.
Yeah,
so the first 5 minutes is compulsory. They will ask from DAF only, sir.
9 out of 10 chances, yes.
Okay.
9 out of 10 chances are that it will be on your DAF. Yeah. Because you see, please understand. I mean, who are you before you entered into the room? As far as they are concerned, 24. As far as you are concerned, you are a piece of paper, boss. You are nothing. You are just a piece of paper with some information on top of it. That's it. And that's exactly the reason why I'd also suggested to you that you would have put a picture on your DAF 1 and 2. Please make sure you look like that picture. Because I have known of people who have gained 7 to 10 kilos from the time that the picture was taken, which is, sunken cheeks and you're probably preparing for the civil service. The fact that you got into the prelims and meanwhile you got a job and you've written your mains well, you gain a lot of weight. Try and look like the picture on the DAF form. So that's very important. And 9 out of 10 chances are that it will be on the DAF. See, that sets the tone. That sets the tone of your conversation. And the first 5 to 7 minutes, if you've had a good conversation, there have been smiles, there have been laughs, and generally everybody is very good about it. Feels there's a feel-good factor going around on that. That sets the tone for the rest of the 15 minutes. Because the last 5 minutes, again, it's only in terms of the fact of your hobbies or your extracurricular activities. And the next 1 or 2 minutes is only on in terms of thank you, bye-bye, etc. So that's my session on DAF. I've got, as I said, another 4 or 5 minutes on questions, and then I'll wind up. If there's any questions so far, please do let me know. And you can type it, or as I said, unmute yourself and do it. Please do not leave this session with a doubt in your mind. Any doubt which you have. But remember, DAF is really, really, really very important. It's very important. And it's a very intrinsic part of the fact that whether you score 190, 200 plus, or you score less. So, importance of DAF, I don't have to underline more than this. Any other point that you have on your conversation point? Otherwise, there's a chat. Rahul, how best to put watching movies? What is it? Is it extracurricular activities? Is it a hobby, or what is it? I mean, if there's a particular genre of movies which you're watching, then it's fine. Like watching biography movies, or watching historical movies, or watching detective serial movies. You have to write a specific genre. Yes, you have to write a specific genre of movies that you watch and why. Somebody, man, Divyang, sir, should I prepare anything regarding that? What is the challenge? Is it okay? Yeah, no, nothing wrong. They will normally depend on what your physical challenge is. Aditya Chandran, is it? Okay, and okay, you can come 1-to-1. So you can talk to Prabhakar, who's my person who coordinates all this thing. You can share what your Divyang problem is, but I thought you were the one who said to play cricket at a state level and things like that. So if you can, you can come directly, and maybe we can discuss it 1-to-1. It's not something that we can discuss in a forum. I'll be very happy to kind of help you out. Yeah. Then, I've been saying that if you're writing some, please don't put general information in any case, because that can be a major, because it could lead to an ocean of questions that can happen, and you'll find yourself uncomfortable. Specifically things like cooking and, as you mentioned, watching movies. See, first of all, don't put too many things. Think again and try and put those 3 or 4 personal points at maximum, which will show your character to be the most suitable for the civil services. Because guys, some of you it may be the first attempt, some of you it may be the 4th attempt, 5th attempt, and maybe just the first attempt at the interview. Some of you maybe 2nd attempt for the interview. I don't know. But the idea of the fact that you are there, whether the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, last attempt, is because you are really, really passionate about joining civil services. And if you're really passionate about joining civil services, you must do everything that you succeed. And please do not do anything that will take you away from success, and do everything that will bring you closer and closer to the pinnacle of success, not only just to the bottom line of success, but to the pinnacle of success. So that's the attempt that I'm trying to show. And what I'm showing and telling you again is that DAF is a very important, significant stepping stone as far as reaching that pinnacle of success is concerned. So with that, I would conclude. My time is up. My last slide is on my next session, which is the expectations of UPSC in terms of personality. What does personality, what kind of a personality does it expect from you? And what are the expectations? What kind of questions that you can get, both in terms of the, after that, KingMakers Academy, of course, is doing almost another 10 sessions on each and every aspect on which you can have questions, which is international relations, then internal issues, environment, climate change, science and technology, all other subjects, polity, politics, concerned with geography, more importantly, current affairs. What are the list of topics on which questions can be asked? We'll do demos of maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of these things to tell you how you have to prepare the data and then put it all together and make sure that you're able to then think and shrink it down to a 5-minute and then think and shrink it to a 3-minute and then make it into acceptable capsules of 90 seconds each and present them with an earthworm at the tip of it. That will happen during the course of this month, starting from now. We will be going on till January 2024 and teaching you all about those things, that by which time you will also know exactly who of you are going to actually go for the personality test. But this is a generic thing. Please assume that you are going for the personality test. Do not for a moment think that why should I prepare because I may not go for the personality test. I would say you should prepare for the fact that I will go for the personality test. Don't even think about the fact that. So all 14,624 of you start preparing as if I am there. I am that one person who will be there for the personality test. Don't give up. Start preparing. DAF is really important. Start thinking about it. My next session, as I said, is on 22nd Wednesday. Please watch out for the date. Please watch out for all the details that will come. Until then, good night. Best of luck. This is Vivek sir saying bye-bye.